You know what? North Carolina weather, I know we talked about it last week, but it is the most bipolar because 3 days ago it was in the 30s, and then today it was 87, almost 90. Yeah, this North Carolina weather is the most bipolar weather ever created.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a fact that, seasons are obsolete at this point and the weather just does whatever it wants. You know,
Yeah, 100%.
we
Yeah,
had
there's,
like we just had snow. Yeah.
yeah, it's ridiculous at this point. Oh, Lord.
I know.
Okay, let me post the live link. Do you get a lot of hate?
Mm, Not as much anymore. I'm not really like I don't really post stuff. Like I post stuff on my stories, which like only really my friends see that. But
Yeah.
like the most hate I get is, putting the wrong comment in the wrong comment section. Even though
Uh
it's usually true.
huh. Of course. Awesome. Well, welcome in to the first person in here. We're gonna get started here in about a couple minutes. Just waiting for some more people to trickle on in. But you are the winner of being the first up to the plate today. Welcome in. Just posted the link. Cool. I had someone yesterday debate me because they're like, "You're anti-vax." I'm like, "No, I never said I was anti-vax. I said that I was pro smart vaccination because I mean, you put everything together, and you can make a very compelling case that vaccines potentially could cause autism or other health effects. But no one's ready for that conversation. Hello.
Yeah, my mother had a really bad reaction to the flu vaccine, and that's why she didn't want to get the COVID one, and she got a lot of heat for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was unreal, and now all these studies are coming out, especially on the COVID one, how it was an mRNA and how it's causing cardiovascular issues, among other things. And it's like, yeah, told you so. And especially if I had to get the shot because I'm in the military, but I would not have gotten that vaccine if it wasn't for the military saying you either get it or you get out. So I definitely, unfortunately, had to take that shot. And then the flu shot, they
Yeah.
make you. It is a requirement that you have to get the flu shot every year. Which personally, I don't agree with that. I'd rather have natural antibodies fighting it off than whatever chemical crap that they try to pump inside of us. But the army.
Exactly. Like
So
I've gotten sick many, many times before, but like I just get over it, you just sniffle a little bit and then lay in bed and then you're fine.
right, a
You
hundred
just lay in
percent.
your own filth and watch things.
Exactly. You get your sniffles, you get your fever, and you move on with your life. But, anyways, well, Marcy, if you're ready, I think I'm gonna go ahead and
Yeah,
kick this thing off.
good, good.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started then. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your busy Mondays to go ahead and join us on this wonderful live stream. It is a beautiful temperature here in North Carolina.
Thank
I
you for
really,
having me.
yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. It is, to start things off first, we got to give you a little update on what is happening here on the Martin Memo as well as Martin Media. To start with Martin Memo first, hey, we're continuing to push along. We just hit 8,800 subscribers, so that is a huge milestone. We're very proud of that. We're going to continue putting out quality content. I started doing series. The only reason I'm doing series right now is it's just a little easier to manage on my end. I just pump out 5 different episodes, 15 minutes a piece, and then push it out as I am currently in school. So just finished up wrapping up all the production for this last series that you will see on Wednesday, Friday, and then next week, Wednesday as well. So just stay tuned for that. We're super excited. It came out really good. I was able to even bring on real examples like the candles and the fragrances. So stay tuned for those. Those are really fun, and they were a lot of fun to make as well. So just be on the lookout for that. We're going to do a couple more series here about maybe some of the unsung heroes of America, and a few other different things like that. So how America came to be, how the two-party system came into play. It was actually from the French as well. A lot of people don't know that. And yeah, so we're just going to continue doing that and producing great content, just a little bit shorter now, to make it easier for me as I do these classes that are kicking my butt right now. Pre-calculus is no joke. On the Martin Media end, we just actually got our tent and tablecloth in, so we are officially good to go for that. We're going to take the tent all around North Carolina this summer. We're going to hit about, we're hoping 14 different colleges over 7 to 10 days. We're really just going to try to push for 2 colleges a day, explaining what our company is, what we are offering, and just pushing it out there. So hopefully we'll get some traction from that. We're barnstorming North Carolina. So it's a great start. Got a lot of good talent here. So we'll see what happens. But, we're getting closer. The app is currently being developed. The website is currently being developed. Business accounts, everything. So it's chaotic, but it's a lot of fun at the same time. But enough about me and enough about that. Marcy, welcome to the show today. This is great. You reached out after last week's live stream and said that you wanted to join. So without further ado, just go ahead and give a little introduction about who the wonderful Marcy is. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, my name is Marcy Krismali. I've been in the Republican sphere for many years now. I'm 17 years old. I'm the former vice chairman of the North Carolina Teenage Republicans Federation. I held that office for about a year, did a lot of work with them. I made a lot of connections. I've never really like stayed out of politics since then. I as of late, I've probably diverted. I thought that I would, but you know, I'm still very conservative, and I think with everything going on lately, it would be nice to, you know, in the image that is Marcy Krismali.
Absolutely. Well, again, it is a pleasure having you on here today. We're going to pick your brain a little bit, talk about some of the big issues, and then just have natural dialogue and see what happens. And of course, chat, all the wonderful people out there. If you have a question, comment, or concern, just go ahead and put in the chat and we will answer it here on the live stream. Other than that, we'll go ahead and get started into some of the big topics today. So thank you again for joining. So I guess the first one that I want to talk about, normally I would jump straight into Iran, but I want to save that for maybe 1 or 2 topics away from this. The first one I want to go into, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but it's AI. There is so much every single day, every single week. It feels like there's a new breakthrough. We're getting super close to it being able to generate content for itself. It's amazing how far AI, you look back a year ago even, and just compared to then to now, how much AI has developed and come a long way. It's insane. You can pretty much have AI do whatever you want. Now, with that being said, there are some concerns that come up with it. The big 2 that I keep hearing, are maybe big 3 rather, natural resources, how it's draining all this water, how it's taking up space, how it's raising energy prices up through the roof. Another big one is that the job displacement that's going to be through AI, that's going to happen because of AI. And then the third big one is the doomsday theory, how the Terminator, how AI is going to come and kill everyone and all that. Now, I'm curious to see. Again, I don't know how much you follow into the AI sector, but do you believe in any of these? Do you think that there are some concerns, maybe some legitimate concerns, maybe some concerns that are not so legitimate? Just curious to kind of pick your brain on what you think of AI and the development as of now.
Well, for one, I'm very I think AI definitely needs to be regulated. I think we need to I don't think it's very plausible to put a stop on human evolution, especially when there's a lot of very powerful forces that stand to gain from this. For example, tech has grown within the last decade or two. Tech has grown. Our tech industry has skyrocketed, and this isn't just in America, this is across the world, but especially in America and especially in China too, where there's direct competition between a lot of sectors. I think there's a lot of people that stand to gain from this, and all of those forces they don't really care about us, at least.
Mhm.
There is very much an with the resource consumption, with how much power it takes to cool down all these machines. It's the same thing. I think the same thing about our like renewable energy strides. And we don't talk about how the wind turbines are very they pollute a lot because they're made of you know cheap plastic materials that they don't last, and then we put them in the landfills. So I think that finding a more sustainable way to carry out a lot of these projects and things like that, and also trying not to mass produce it as much. I know James Fishback in Florida, who you talked about with Cameron last week. One of the he's campaigning on is not building AI data centers in Florida, which he's like head to head with Byron Donalds on. And all of those are legitimate concerns. Now, do I think that one day AI is gonna like necessarily rise up and like slaughter all of humanity? No, I think it's very far out there. It's very sci-fi, but I think that as AI grows smarter and we if we don't get a handle on it, and this isn't just something that legislators can do, this is something that the actual people, the actual coders behind the screens can do. I think that it could cause a very significant geopolitical problem in the future.
Yeah, I think this is definitely going to be one of the unsung um, issues of 2028 and maybe the 2032 election as well, as we kind of near this super intelligence form. But I'm just, again, I'm not trying to call you out because this is one of the debates that I actually have in my mind. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. You said that we need to somewhat regulate it and control it, which I think that's very fair and reasonable. But where would you regulate and control that? Would you do it more at the state level? Would you do it at the federal level? I've heard all different ways, and honestly, I'm a little torn on what I believe as far as where we should regulate it at. So, do you care to answer that question?
I think that we should give the states and federal, and also in on the international level too. I think there should be some sort of groundwork, at least to set precedents for other countries, because you know how people this is one thing that rich people do. They'll if they can't abide by the laws of one country, they'll just flee to another where they can carry out whatever practices they want. That's why there's so many Swiss bank accounts, and you're always hearing about Swiss bank accounts, whatever, whatever. But I think that on the state and the federal level, we should at least be given the freedom to carry out some of these restrictions. And especially in states like California, where a lot of these places operate, is going to be a big factor in this too.
Yeah, I think, I could see a good, healthy federal and state level. As far as international, I mean, that would be great in a perfect society. Um, excuse me. But you have places like China and places like Russia that are going to ignore that and do their own thing anyway. So I think that's kind of hard to regulate at the international level. As far as within the United States, I hear both sides. I think there needs to be a framework at maybe both sides, and that's probably the best approach because my only concern is it depends on who you typically, and especially as of late, every 4 to 8 years, we get a we get a new person in charge that's completely different. Usually it goes Republican to Democrat, Democrat to Republican, whatever it may be. So as soon as they get in charge, are they going to completely rewrite the federal law for AI? And then at the state level, you look at places like California who overregulate the crap out of everything, AI included. And then, compare it to a state like Texas, which is more of a free state. So are we going to see crazy restrictions in California, or is California going to try to manufacture a way to say how all Republicans are evil, terrible, pedophiles, whatever the adjective and word of the day is? That would be my only concern, is how do we necessarily regulate it with our country being so divided as it is right now?
I'm going to be honest with you. I really don't know how to answer that. I
No, that's
think
fair.
that I think that I think that humans have a way of piecing together a solution to their problems, and you know, we haven't really seen something like that on a massive scale before, like on a scale that this is going to take, this specific issue. I think that we could manage once we realize how existential this is. And you know what? Maybe maybe this isn't the best thing to say, but I think as I've been really banking on the second coming of Christ. Like that is something that I've been thinking about a lot.
This is a quick
Like Jesus come down and save us.
quick quick side little note on that. There's a Kalshi. It's one of the most popular betting apps out there, and Kalshi has a 4% of Jesus Christ coming back this year, and has a 2% chance of the Dallas Cowboys winning the Super Bowl. So their people are banking more on Jesus Christ returning than the Dallas Cowboys winning the Super Bowl. I thought that was hilarious. I just wanted to throw that out there because I had seen that the other day.
They
But
were also
uh,
banking more on GTA 6.
yeah.
Like they've had fun with that over at Kalshi.
Absolutely. So I do want to move on to the next topic here, but I want to backtrack a little bit. I want to talk about your upbringing and why you decided to join the Republican Party, and why you decided to get into politics. Was there kind of a defining moment? Yeah, just tell us a little bit on how you decided to get into politics.
Well, um, my interest in politics didn't start out with me being a Republican. Most of my immediate family is actually really liberal and at least left leaning, I'll say. Most of them are like, no, don't call me liberals. You know how they are. But you know, you kind of hear feedback from them in a lot of the times. And so back in 2016, I think the thing that planted a seed in my head was I was on the bus driving to school, and this was in elementary school, and someone asked me if I liked Hillary Clinton or Trump more. I didn't have an answer to the question, but you know, as I started to think about it a little more, I kind of learned I kind of learned a lot, at least from the people that were around me. Um, when I became Republican, however, I had matured a little bit more, and I can't quite say there was a sort of defining moment as much as it was like me kind of going through my old beliefs and, you know, really challenging them to the point where, I'm just thinking, maybe this doesn't really work. And also, Biden was his presidency, so you have a firsthand example of a lot of these things.
Yep. 100%.
And there were
What
a
an
lot of
atrocious.
yeah,
Yeah. What an atrocious presidency. Unreal. We can dive into that a little bit later as we wrap things up. But Yeah, I think that's a great story. And, I kind of have a similar one to that. I watched Barack Obama and Mitt Romney debate in 2012, and I remember wanting to be up on that stage and just looking at Obama and thinking that he was a fraud. I was 10 years old and I could basically decipher that this guy was not genuine. And, but yeah, so nonetheless, here we are. And thank goodness we have a pretty solid commander in chief. Not, definitely questionable at times, but I still support the president. And yeah. By the way, people in the chat here, go ahead and leave some things, some comments, some questions, some concerns, whatever you feel like. We would be happy to answer it. And also by you commentating, it also helps push the algorithm and get more people on here. So by all means, drop some questions or comments, anything that you please. Yeah. But while we are waiting for that, I
Jesus,
do
my
want to
phone
talk
really
to you.
got
Yeah, it's a little bit questionable. Um, yeah, so I do want to talk to you about the Iranian war and the conflict overseas. I know that you have some pretty strong beliefs on that. I'm just curious to hear your beliefs and what you feel. Is this a necessary war? Do you think this is stupid? Do you see anything good in it? What's your overall thoughts?
well, the baseline is that Trump said no new wars. You know, there were no new wars in his first term. He campaigned on that. He said he would continue that, and clearly he hasn't. I mean, you don't even have to really look that far. Just drive to your nearest gas station. When Trump came into office, like gas was like $2, $1. And we were good with that. Like I was genuinely happy about that. And now it's up to like three, four, five, six. In like I've seen some crazy gas prices ever since all of this has been going down. Another thing is that the way that the way that we risked completely destabilizing the country, you know, say what you want about the Iranian regime, friend to all of these like extremist Muslim organizations, countries, but say what you they were reforming in their own way, you know. So this whole like, oh, we're saving the people because they're oppressed issue, they were already reforming. You know, there were some very serious open acts of defiance that the law just kind of stopped enforcing, you know, and you saw examples of that. But what we did was completely decapitated it, and rather than allowing the people charged on their own, we essentially risked destabilizing the entire country. It's a very country. It has all kinds of minorities. It has all kinds of people in it, different religions. I think they could have been democratic. They could have been maybe they couldn't they maybe they could have even been pro USA. They could have, you know, at least moderated on some of their more oppressive practices. But the one thing that they truly could never be was pro Israel. And Benjamin Netanyahu, you see this, you multiple people have already said this, that every single Israeli prime minister has lobbied every single president to try and bomb Iran. This has just been a long-standing thing. They threatened to use nukes this time around, which they haven't. They're like, yeah, we don't confirm or deny we have nukes. They threatened to use nukes this time around, I guess, and that's why Trump finally caves. But this has been this has been one of their, what I believe at least, this has been one of their main goals, and they finally succeeded it. And no one is winning except for Netanyahu. This is completely his war, and we've just inserted ourselves in it, like we always do.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to rebuttal a little bit of what you said. I think you and I have slight differences here. First of all, as far as the religious makeup of Iran, you had mentioned that it's full of diversity. It's really not, actually. It's approximately Shia Islam is 90 to 95% of the population, and then Sunni Islam is 5 to 10%. So it's pretty much predominantly dominated by Islam. You could argue that it's 100% Islam. So I will back on that. I will
It's
just back you up on that.
predominantly. It's
Yeah,
run
that's
by Muslims.
100%.
It's mostly Muslim. There's
It's
different
100%.
ethnic populations in there. There's the Persians, there's Arabs, there's the more Indian makeups. There's the people that the country in the north, I think Kurdistan. There's different. All I'm saying is that like there's a lot of what what we've done is basically created a power vacuum in the country.
I see your concern, and I talk to a lot of people like this who don't believe in what we are doing. And in fact, I think on the national scale, it's an 80-20 issue. And this time, the GOP, Trump is taking the side of the 20 issue when normally they take the side of the 80 issue. War is never really popular. The only time that it was truly popular in America was you had it for the Revolutionary War, obviously to gain our independence, and then also World War II. But it didn't start out that way. People did not want to go to war. That's why we drove our feet. And then eventually, when Pearl Harbor got bombed, then it became more of a, hey, yes, war is actually good. Let's go solve this. But anyways, that's a side issue. The thing about Iran that a lot of people that I will rebuttal is you say that they were headed towards the right direction. I don't think there was truly any solid indication of that. When you had people at the upper estimates say 30,000 people that protested got killed, got mowed down, got run over, got shot, publicly executed. I don't think that personally is them on their way to a democratic society. I personally, that's just not what I believe. Maybe there's some hidden gold gem that I'm missing or something of that nature. But when over the past few months you had upwards, and again, the upper end of the estimate is about 30,000. Most people think it's around 15 to 20,000. Either way, that's a lot of individuals that were protesting that ended up getting slaughtered because they spoke up against the Iranian regime and the oppressor. So I wouldn't really say that that's necessarily on the way to democracy, but maybe there's something that you know that I don't know. And then the
I
next thing I
mean,
want to talk
our way to
about.
democracy back in 1776 wasn't without bloodshed either. I think we can
Well,
both agree on that.
yeah, well, I mean, I think it's two different sides of a coin here, but nonetheless, the other thing that I keep hearing reports about is yes, the nuclear thing. I don't really necessarily buy that. I think that's ridiculous. I'm pretty sure that we hit their nuclear capabilities back in what was it, August, September, somewhere around there. It could be just a little bit off when with Operation Midnight Hammer. So I don't really buy that nuclear stuff. I think that was just maybe to stir the hive's nest to get the U.S. to react or to get Israel to react. But I think what we are seeing is there was a report on an IBCM that got launched 4,000 kilometers away. The estimated reports and what a lot of people thought that they had the capabilities of shooting was 2,000 kilometers away. So 2,000 to 4,000, that's a pretty big, significant range. So I think that they're taking out that. I think that could be a potential possibility. The other thing that I do see is the BRICS. I talked about it last week. I don't know how much of that conversation you heard, but allegedly the U.S. was acting now because they didn't want BRICS to take over and replace the dollar as the global currency. I don't know how much of that you buy into, but again, I think we have slight differences on this war. My big thing is as long as there's not boots on the ground, I'll support it, and as long as it's relatively quick, I will support it. Allegedly, there's within 5 days they're going to come out and say, "Hey, we've reached peace or we've reached an agreement." Again, I don't know how much I believe of that, but if that is the case, I think this was a very well done operation as of now. As it stands right now, this was a pretty well done operation. It was strategic. It attacked military sites. It really didn't go over civilian or any of those counterparts. So hopefully there's some light that comes out of this, and hopefully this gets resolved sooner rather than later. But again, I'll hand over the floor to you.
One thing I did want to really think about was this the BRICS unit theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw that, like, I'm aware of it. I don't think attacking Iran would really affect that. They're not really Iran isn't really special when it comes to gold. And from what I know, and this I could be wrong, but from what I know, like the big thing with the BRICS currency, like their biggest marketing selling point was that it was going to be backed by gold. So I think if that really was their main concern, attacking Iran wouldn't have been really effective in that. And another was their main concern. I don't know why they wouldn't just say that. Saying that, that's a very largely non-controversial thing compared to what they are saying, which is kind of just like jumbled sense. And and like it's something that Trump even campaigned on. Like I remember him saying at a rally one time that he like that if the dollar falls and is replaced as the world standard, it would have been the greatest loss that America
Hmm.
would face. So if he if that was his goal, then he would totally be in every right to pursue that, and no one would really be surprised, and plenty of people would support him. So I don't really see that as like super likely.
Yeah. Well,
I
I
do think
will.
that's an interesting theory.
It is an interesting theory, and I think it is worth at least a moment of consideration. And as far as it's backed by gold, that's sort of true. It's 40% gold based, and then 60% in the nations currency. So you have China, you have Iran, you
Mhm.
have many others as well. Russia, Brazil. I know I can keep going down the list, but nonetheless, so it is backed by gold, but it's not 100% gold. It's also with 60% of the member currencies. As far as Iran not having a big gold, that is relatively true. However, they have a lot of oil and resources that support the other nations within BRICS. 90% of their exports, I want to say, are to China, which that's quite a bit, and the other 10 are kind of rotated and filtered out a few. Some go to Russia, but I think that's enough to at least destabilize it or at least halt
Mm.
it. So the BRICS theory, it could be a part. I don't think it's the sole reason, but I think it is worth a consideration, and I think it's kind of an unsung or untold event that is happening. But I mean, yeah, I think regardless, it'll be interesting. I think part of the reason
Yeah, I
too that
definitely think it's an interesting theory.
yeah, 100%. I think part of the thing too about this whole Iran thing that they don't really there's not a lot of transparency with it, which I know they said they were going to be the most transparent administration out there. But I think one of the big things that is not being told is that they do a lot of this because they can't necessarily trust a lot of the members in Congress. I mean, it goes on both sides, but you look at like Jasmine Crockett, who's crying that she didn't get briefed on things like this when she technically doesn't have to, and she would probably open her loud mouth and exploit it everywhere. And additionally, yeah, I think there maybe it's a little bit of 4D chess as well, kind of throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks and what goes away. But again, nonetheless, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, and I'm praying and hoping that within 5 days, like they had said earlier today, that this will be resolved. But we'll see. Hey, maybe by the next Martin Memo Monday, we'll have a definitive answer. But okay,
Yeah,
we see. We have a
only we got that already.
right. Hopefully, we'll have it done in the next couple days. But how many American lives were lost in the last 47 years because of Iran's hatred for America? Yeah, quite a few. Unfortunately, 47 years. I mean, this should have been resolved 47 years ago. But nonetheless, here we are taking care of it now. Yeah, too many lives. I mean, in reality, one life is too many lives, but definitely way too many lives have been lost because of this conflict. Congress has a lot of info leakers. Yeah, 100% they do. And even if they don't outright, here's a great one. So I'm in the military, right? I've acknowledged that, and you take an oath to the Constitution and an oath to the officers above you and the President of the United States. Well, General Milley, former top general of all of NATO, or not NATO, of all of the United States, essentially, he said that he would go and give China a heads up if we were going to attack them. I mean, when you have people like that, some of the top brass and also top Congress people elected in office, and they're just going out spouting that, I think it makes it a little hard to open up and actually talk about these issues. But yeah.
Yeah. What I will say is that this is an issue that far predates Trump. It far predates definitely both of our lifetimes. You
Yeah.
know, it's not going to be fixed in a day.
No. No.
And you know, I think the whole Middle East project was a mistake, honestly. Us being there was just like, what do we get out of it?
I think there was a lot of things that were wrong, especially with George H.W. Bush, the CIA plant. But I think that's where it really all stemmed from. And one of the big things is they just wanted to go in there and shove Western style democracy down their throats. And I don't think that's the right answer. I think kind of the Venezuela approach that we're seeing right now, where, hey, we're going to take out the oppressive leaders, we're going to kind of let you install who's best for the job with some of our oversights and make sure that things go smoothly there. But yeah, that's one of the biggest difference. I don't think we're necessarily shoving Western style democracy down their throats. We're letting them do what's best for their country with minimal oversights. So that would just kind of be my guess there. But nonetheless, I do want to go ahead and move on here to the next topic.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about the No Kings protest. I'm not sure if you were aware, but we have another No Kings protest that is coming on Saturday. Are you going to be out there supporting the rally, Marcia?
Oh
You
my
seem like
God.
the guy that would go out there and support and make sure you take to the streets to protest this. Is that, are you taking your Saturday to go and do that?
You said there's a a no. Oh my God, there's a no king wave.
Yeah, we got a No Kings protest coming
I'm
March
sorry.
28th. So on Saturday, are you going to be out there supporting it?
Me, well, like Cameron said on the last show, I'm much a keyboard warrior. I'm probably, and I don't want to be those people. Like, ah, God, how do I say this without being mean? Um, you know what? Have you seen the videos of like that girl who like goes to the liberal protests and like interviews what I
Oh
think her
yeah.
name's like Liberty something.
Yeah. I've seen her. She's great.
Yeah, she's like the people that gets like they look like they smell. Like you smell them through the screen. And
Yeah.
with all due respect, like I live in Asheville, it's just like you can smell the whole city. There's not a stick
yeah.
of deodorant in sight. So
Well,
no, I will not be
I'm
going to the No King
attending one of those
protest.
rallies myself here on Saturday. Well, I'll go. Yeah, these No Kings protests exactly are absolutely ridiculous. Waste of time, waste of resources. This is just another way to shove their agenda down the throat. And but I'm gonna potentially go out there. I'm gonna put on potentially a wig and really make it look like I'm a No King supporter, and then basically have a couple gotcha moments without them knowing that I'm having a gotcha moment with them. But yeah, I should be out there this Saturday. We'll see what happens, but yeah, these protests are absolutely
I will be
ridiculous.
watching.
Um, yeah, I'll be out there supporting. So we'll see what happens with
Oh,
that.
maybe
But
we'll go there for a little bit.
yeah, exactly. Cool. Yeah, there's one in Eagle River, Wisconsin. That's kind of where some of my stomping grounds are. Someone in the chat here is from Three Lakes, Wisconsin, so it's right by Eagle River. But yeah, nonetheless, there's tons of protests all across the United States. It looks like there's even some in Canada for whatever reason. Oh, there actually it's gone international now. Look at that. There's Ecuador. We have it in the UK, Spain, France, Germany,
There's
Switzerland,
no way.
Italy, Hungary.
They're
Um,
protesting. All these people are protesting Trump.
I don't know. It's on the official No Kings website, which is a protest against Trump. So I guess. Oh, there's even one in Nairobi, Kenya. I just definitely butchered the heck out of that, but yeah, look at that. Oh, we also have in Indonesia as well.
I
Yeah,
don't know
they're
what name you just said, but I don't know why people there care about Trump.
insane. So that is uh, ridiculous. They are all paid for. Yeah, 100%. Especially the people that organize it. The people that organize it and hand out material, they're paid without a doubt. Maybe I can go get a part time
Oh
job
yeah,
and do
that's
that.
another thing. Like they're all there for the money. Like
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of people there that are just like on someone's payroll. And you could just
yep,
do that. You just hire people to like sit at your events and scream. Like that's
yeah.
what Ben Shapiro does. He just hires to like come in and oh my
So
gosh.
on that note, I do want to pick your brain on Ben Shapiro. I had seen you make a post or a video rather. You were on someone's
Ooh.
podcast, I believe, and you had talked about how Ben Shapiro purposely plants people in the crowd to get more applause. Now, I wasn't aware of this, and I just kind of want to hear what you believe in regards to that. So, where did you find that information? What are your thoughts on Ben Shapiro? Again, I think we'll have differing opinions. I think for the most part, Ben Shapiro is pretty spot on. Lately, he's kind of drifted a little far away from what I like. But overall, I've supported Ben Shapiro. I've listened to him for quite a while. Lately, it's been a little bit questionable, but I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on Ben Shapiro.
Zachary, you are a lot nicer than I am. I did support Ben Shapiro back in 2022. I watched him for a little bit. Um, but he's just like he's the most disgusting person in the movement. Like everybody has a story against him. You know, Candace has told plenty of things. Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly has said some things. Steve Bannon, at Turning Point, made a speech about how he basically manufactured scandal over Breitbart basically because he wanted to take over the company because he didn't like how Trump it was like back in 2016 when he was against Trump. You know, he very much lives up to all of the super anti-Semitic stereotypes that Jews think that they're better than everyone. It's really sad and it's really disgusting. I think he thinks that he's just smarter than everybody and that he's just better than everyone because he's like he has more money or he's more connected. Like I don't know what his deal is, but he's just can just trounce all over you. Like one thing that made my blood boil was that he um he tried to get Michael Knowles to basically publicly condemn Candace Owens on a live stream on one of his like Daily Wire backstage whatever. And what really gets me is that Michael Knowles is godfather to Candace's children. So to try and like to try and just pressure pressure that bond over them, just like peer pressure, that very deep spiritual bond. If you don't agree with Cam, some of the things that she does, that's fine. That is just extremely heinous. That's just him doing what he does best, trying to execute power over people because he thinks he just has it. I think he's disgusting. I think he is very much Lord Farquaad on his midget horse. And, you know, I think back when we were all saying like, oh, facts don't care about your feelings, because we were all busy being angry with the Democrats and Biden, to like really look into ourselves. We didn't see it. But I think now that we are kind of looking at each other and trying to call out wrong for wrong, and not just like wrong when it's on the left, I think that everyone can see that now.
Well, I'm not going to press too much because clearly you have your minds made up that you are not a Ben Shapiro fan. So that you made that very clear, and I
I
think some
say,
of those concerns are reasonable. But I still like what Ben Shapiro does for the most part. Again, as of late, I mean, as of late, they've all kind of gone off the rails just a little bit. You look at Tucker Carlson, you look at Candace Owens, you look at Ben Shapiro and others. So I'll say that's fair, but I'll still continue to support him just a little more from afar. Again, I think he's gone a little bit off the wagon, just a little bit, but I would say that Candace Owens probably is more off the wagon at this point. I don't know how if you believe this or not, but I don't believe that entire thing
mm,
about how Erica Kirk
I
murdered
don't
her
think so.
husband. So I'm curious though. Let's go ahead and poke the bear a little bit. Do you think that Erica Kirk murdered her husband, or at least maybe not murder? Maybe that's not the appropriate terminology. But do you think she played a part in the murder of her husband?
Look, there's no way to know. You know, what Candace is trying to do is conduct an investigation, and it's out of necessity. Okay, no one else is doing it. We know there's some serious inconsistencies with the case. You know, if you if you look back to the beginning, Candace was actually pretty defensive of Erica at first. Okay, and this was like this was like even while Ben Shapiro was going up and trying to Candace is saying that Erica killed. I'm like, nobody thinks that. Okay, but the fact that she's just told so many lies and inconsistencies, the fact that she's completely fake to everybody, just like look at the way she forgave the person that murdered her husband on stage, which very much was a virtue signal, I believe, really feels about Tyler Robinson. But I think that was a very calculated virtue signal on Eric's part. And um and now she's just railing against anybody who actually questions the narrative, and for a second there, like, actually met, they had a conversation, you know her lawyer was present, but there were some serious, like, as far as what Candace said, there was a lot of times that Erica just lied to her face. It seems productive until, she checked back with sources and found that. And the way that the way that everyone's feathers are ruffled by this. Okay, if you let me put it this way: lift up a rug because you think there's cockroaches under there. If you lift and there's no cockroaches, you're not going to see cockroaches squirm. But it seems like she's lifting up the rug and the cockroaches are squirming. You know, Turning Point fired about a dozen bees, you know, because Candace has like a source in there, but like they fired all these people, didn't get the source that was feeding her information, and now all of the people that they fired immediately go and email Candace and tell them what they know. That's how we have that weird call with her like being like, oh yeah, like basically celebrating basically a week after her death, like celebrating all the money that they brought in and whatever, whatever. And I think a lot of Candace detractors, like I don't know personally about you, Zachary, and I'm not even saying that I agree with everything she says, but I think you really need to watch her for a really long time to kind of understand that she's got away with this. Now, I remember back in 2020 is kind of when I not 2020, it was more like 2022 when I jumped on the Candace train and it was like BLM was thing. So, you know, she was the one person who was saying like, yeah, no, this is a really suspicious organization. This whole George Floyd narrative does not work. And everyone in the she was the one black person that would actually say that. Everybody in the black community, liberals, came at her. And I don't know if you watched the documentary she did. I had it downloaded at one point that proved everything she said was right. She looked at BLM's 990 filings. She looked at the inconsistencies in George Floyd's own murder, how he was a repeat criminal, how he was on like crazy amounts of drugs at the time. She was completely with Israel. She got fired from the Daily Wire because basically because she said genocide is always wrong. She gets fired from the Daily Wire after October 7th. Now, a good 2/3, I think, of the conservative movement have come over to her side, have come over to the same opinions as her. You know, she she knows how to make a case at least, and I think that Candace Owens wouldn't try to push something as strongly as she is now if she didn't feel like it was well researched and she didn't feel like she was proud of it. You know, I just think she has a track record with these things.
Yeah, I mean, you could make that argument, and you could say that, and I'm sure there's some truth in it. I don't think that Erica Roll had a part in killing her husband. I think that's very far fetched. What I do see with Candace is she's done a lot of great work. I probably agree with majority of her things, and her BLM documentary, fantastic, mind you. But what I would say is what I'm seeing, and
I mean,
I
I
see
don't
that.
think she killed her husband either. I think that's kind of
Yeah.
crazy, but
Yes.
like I don't think she killed her husband either, but you just you gotta admit that like all this lying and all this stuff like you don't just people don't just lie. It's just weird. She's
Hmm.
been acting weird. Everyone's been acting weird on this.
I think
And,
Turning
you know,
Point has they probably need some help. Just from I work with a few individuals who are associated with Turning Point, and I think overall Turning Point is a pretty great organization. But as of late, there's definitely been some questionable things where I'll just give you an example because I doubt he'll even watch this. But I'm creating my media company, like I earlier stated, and I have several different individuals in there. I have 7 teammates. Okay, one of them came and condemned Turning Point and said that that the people in there did not have America's best interest. Okay, well I have another individual within the company who actually works for Turning Point, and he came and said I can't even work with this company if you guys are going to trash Turning Point. Like that makes me look bad, and I'm looking at him and I'm like, well, that reflects a lot on what Turning Point is doing then. Because if you can't even be associated with someone who has a different opinion and has does not like Turning Point, what does that say about the companies? Like, I could get fired because of that. I'm like, so you could get fired for someone else who has free will saying their own thing, not even you saying that, but someone else. I'm like, that seems a little sketchy. So, needless to say that it wasn't the right time for us to do business. Maybe in the future, but that stuff makes me twitch and question things a little bit on how Turning Point's being ran. Again, I think there's a lot of good elements, and I think they really did capture the youth movement. Now, whether they can sustain that and keep that up, that's going to be to be determined. But um, yeah, I think they do have some issues right now, and we'll see what all happens.
You know what's really funny is I have a poster from Blexit when Blexit was like a part of Turning Point. That's a quote from Candace Owens, and it says Turning Point Faith on it. So it's like, wow, how the times have changed, you know?
Wow.
Like I feel like I'm
Wow.
hanging up a relic of the past.
Yeah, how the turntables have turned, as
Long
Michael
times
Scott
were
from The Office.
simpler.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Back in the good, back in the
how the
heydays
turns
before
table.
COVID and stuff. Yeah. Well, I tell you what here. I'm
Yeah.
gonna let you pick the next topic out. You're gonna go ahead and pick the next topic. People in the chat, if you want to go ahead and ask some questions, we're gonna finish here in about 20-ish minutes or so. But Marcy, I've been asking you questions, so you get to put me on the hot seat, or you get to bring up a topic that you're passionate and want to talk about.
Well, one of the things that in my criticism of Trump, you know, I think that the one thing that I've held firm on, for better or for worse, I would say for better, is the deportation. You know, I don't think it's not that I don't have a sort of, it's not that I don't have sympathy for people that are coming over, but I think that, how do I put this? I think that it was a necessary thing. I don't think that letting in, the 20 million that came in was was very smart under Biden. I don't think he's doing it right though. I think that, going into a state like Minnesota and doing all these like crazy stunts, I think it was a very political move, in a state that is run by like Tim Walz, who he ran against in the election. I think it was very much to try to stab them in the chest. And also like the numbers really aren't there. There have been a lot more like self deportations than there have been
Mhm.
like actual ones. However, I do think, if you go to that like wow.dhs.gov, you can see like all of the criminals that he has deported and found.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right as far as that goes. You you look at it. I think 3% of the deportations that happen in the United States come out of Minnesota, so a very small fraction. But there's a lot of fraud there with Somalia. That's a separate issue, though. That's not really technically they are legal citizens as of now. I think the issue goes into we need to do better, and I think Kristi Noem was not the right fit for the job. I really was not a fan of her. I really liked her. She was a great governor for, I believe it was South Dakota, if I'm not mistaken. She was a great governor, one of the most fiscally responsible
Yeah, it was
governors.
South Dakota.
Um, yeah, she was great, and then DHS kind of I don't know maybe the position went to her head or something, but I'm really not a fan of Kristi Noem. I'm glad that she's been reassigned to a different position. I think Mr. Senator Mullen is going to do a fantastic job, and hopefully it only increases. I think they do need to focus on other states other than Minnesota. There's bigger fish to fry. I think as of now, and the numbers have gone up just a little bit, but there's been 600,000 true deportations, and the rest have come by self deportating. So I think there's some work that needs to be done, and I think you need to attack bigger states, probably all across the Southwest. That would probably be where I would start with California, Arizona, New Mexico, and for sure Texas. So there needs to be a stronger emphasis there. Hopefully, Senator Mullen will be the person that steps up and does the right job. I think he'll do wonders, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, so
Kristi Noem is a politician who could have had potential if she wasn't so problematic. You know,
mm-hmm.
I think she had a lot of issues. She's one of those people who you could make up a story about, like that whole thing that killed her chances of getting the vice presidential nomination because people went through her book and found out she shot her dog. They still haven't stopped talking about that. So I think that Kristi Noem, when she was just governor of South Dakota, like everything was fine for her. She could have, slowly climbed the ranks to something else. She could have made something for herself, but she was just, it was everything was the cards just weren't stacked up for her,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know. And
100%.
I think it's gonna be
Go ahead.
Kristi Noem and Pam Bonnie's next.
Yeah, Pam Bondi is next. I agree with that. I think a lot of people are saying that Pete Hegseth
Yeah.
might be next. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. I think he's actually probably one of the best cabinet picks that President Trump has had. I really do believe that, and I'm not just saying that because I'm in the military. He's technically one of my bosses. I actually do really believe that, and I think he's done a lot better job than what people have given him credit for. The other thing that I think a lot of people have to realize, and they don't necessarily realize, and I'll give credit back to Kristi Noem as well as Pam Bondi. These people were not here; they were not put in the position to keep the status quo. That is a complete fallacy. Same with Pete Hegseth, among others. They were here to completely take a sledgehammer to the institutions, completely reform them, turn them around, stop having lifelong bureaucrats supporting Democrats in office. So I think that's the big thing that a lot of people don't necessarily understand is they're not here to keep the status quo or do things as business usual. They are there to reform, completely break down and rebuild and kind of brand it as the new maybe GOP bureaucrat, if you will. But that is the big thing that I think a lot of people miss. Now, granted, that doesn't mean that I don't think Kristi Noem deserved to not get fired. I think she deserved 100% to get fired, and Pam Bondi should be next. But I think a lot of times people overlook that these people were not designed to keep the status quo. They were designed to completely gut and reform.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that as far as breaking the status quo goes, you say that it makes me think of Linda McMahon supposed to like completely dismantle the Department of Education. And I don't really know how that's going. I haven't really checked in on that as of late. But I think that yeah, that is very much like what the goal of this Trump administration was as far as, the inner workings of the executive branch was. Um, However, I can't say that they've been doing it the best. For example, Kash Patel said like on his first day he was gonna repurpose the what was it, the J. Edgar Hoover building and make it into a museum. What happened to that? What happened to all that energy?
Yeah.
And especially with the intelligence guys, like I've been watching John Kiriakou a lot, and you know, the thing with these federal bureaucrats is that it's like they're just entrenched, like they basically dug themselves into the fabrics of these offices. Like one of the things he said was that they can just wait out any presidency. They want to do something and the president says no, wait 4 or 8 years for their president.
Yep.
And like, you know, a lot of these walls, they're not gonna be how do I put it? They're not gonna be knocked down in a day. They're not gonna be knocked down probably before Trump's term is ended. I think this is going to be a movement, and what we need is to just not lose traction.
Yeah, hopefully everything kind of goes and hopefully they ramp it up a little bit. I tell you what, if they lose in the midterms and especially if they lose badly, all this progress, all this hard work is going to come to a screeching halt. So it's very important that they do retain and win. And hopefully they pick up a few wins before then so they don't get absolutely dismantled during the midterms. As far as the Department of Education, so currently they slashed the force to 50%. Additionally, the department is moving to shift programs to other agencies, including the Department of Labor, Interior, and Health and Human Services. So that is kind of the big thing. So it does require a congressional act to dismantle a department. But we'll see with how divided we are. I don't think that's going to happen. But USA, USA, yeah, I love that in the comments. But at least as of now, they're completely dismantling and repurposing the Department of Education, and hopefully they do see the end of that because that has been a atrocious department that has only led in the U.S. going down in scores across the board. First implemented under Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, exactly. Education should be run by state, you know. We've
Yep.
all taken those like state exams that are like they even have different names. They have different names, they have different everything. Like education is predominantly run by the state. Like all the federal department is just like a giant bureaucracy that hands out like checks that it could be repurposed. So yeah, I am glad to see that go. I
Yeah.
think that I mean, I would say that, you know, that that there could be a lot of like revenue savings on this, but we don't seem to have any interest in going down and spending because we never
I
do.
tell you what,
We're still
that's
at
a great
COVID levels of
segue.
spending.
Yeah, we're still at those COVID levels. I tell you what, that's a great segue into our final topic of tonight, and that is the national spending. I'm going to let you have the first crack at this. What do you think needs to be done to get this spending under control? Do you think there's any hope? Do you think these senators and elected leaders are just going to spend us into oblivion? What's your whole pulse and take on that?
I'm going to have to be honest with you once more, and that is I have no idea. I think
Yeah.
that like there's just some things that can only be taken care of by one person being decisive enough to just be like, we're not doing it anymore. But we can't do that because it's Congress. And like
Mhm.
everyone always comes in and says that like, oh, we're gonna tackle the national debt. We're gonna do the national debt. No one really does. The only person that's actually serious about that, I think, is Thomas Massey. But they always find a way to they always find a way to they always find a way to increase the spending. Personally, I think we need to cut the military budget and not I know you're in the army and stuff. So obviously this is not you, but like until they can until they can actually pass an audit, the Pentagon needs to suffer the hardest, I think. You know, and that's the one thing that I'm most passionate on in this issue is just the sheer lack of accountability with it
Yeah.
all. There's just all this money that just goes into a void. We never see it again. Where's all this
Yeah.
money going? A lot of it is
Right.
being laundered. I mean, you saw that whole thing with the Somalian daycares in Minnesota, you know. But
Yeah.
it's just
Well,
like we need to we just need to go in there and start slashing things.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to rebuttal that a little bit. I think we do need to slash things. I would not touch the military or Pentagon budget at all. I think that's the only thing that I would probably keep in place. But the biggest one before the the highest ticket is Social Security. And what we need to do with Social Security, in my opinion, is we need to raise the age by 5 years. So they need to raise the age by 5 years, and I think that would actually help. Additionally, there are so many fraudulent payments up there, and if you make over $100,000 a year, you can still collect Social Security, which I believe is 100% wrong. I think that if you're making over, really in reality, 75K, 100,000 a year, you should not be receiving a dime of Social Security. I think that's absolutely stupid and atrocious. So that is something that needs to get done, and I would do it quickly. Additionally, Medicare. Medicare is another big one. They estimate that there's $100 billion in Medicare, of fraud in Medicare. So go ahead, gut that, and fix it as well. Another one, Medicaid. Medicaid is pretty much kind of already where it is, but again, maybe raise it by 5 years, maybe fix a couple things, tweak a couple things. But that is what I would touch as well. I would not touch the Department of War's budget as of now. I think we need to go back to regular pre-pandemic level spending. I think that would be very good for our country. Additionally, something else that we need to talk about doing, and it just escaped my mind at the just as I was bringing it up, but oh man, what was it? We need to, well, oh yeah, that's what it was. Cut back the federal governments. You can truly eliminate 40% of the federal government workforce, and they would be just fine. Right now, we have such a bloated bureaucracy. So if we eliminated 40% of the federal level, even if we eliminated 25%, that would greatly help things. It really got exploited by FDR back in the early 20s timeframe. That is when he created the New Deal. I believe that's what it was called, and basically grew the federal workforce by like 4 times of what it was. And that's where it really started, and that's how it became bloated and so much overreach. So I think we need to go back to completely shaving off the federal workforce among those other things that I had brought up. So we can save so much money doing that. But
Yeah, as far as the federal bureaucracy, they beat that up during wartime, and they always do these things during wartime.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, the FDR was one of the worst presidents we've had because of strictly because of, how much he completely nationalized all of our industry, how he bloated the bureaucracy, like you said. I think we need to give some of those responsibilities back to the states. Um, and as far as the military budget, I know it's not popular, but like if they for me it's I would be okay with it if they just passed an audit. They failed 8 of them, 8 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So, if something's not going to be done, then I mean, what could we even say? And we know that there's a level of corruption in the military, not like in the military, but in the top, in the Pentagon. There's
Yeah.
these generals that like go work for military contractors and things like so. I think that something definitely needs to be done. Void inside the Pentagon, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's just where
Yeah,
I
you're
stand.
no, you're right. I think there's some aspects that they could 100% fix, and probably maybe scrutinize their budget just a little bit more. And yeah, and also stop letting these big weapons arms manufacturers, among others, rip us off. I know that Pete Hegseth actually just attended a meeting about a month or two ago to help reduce some of the costs because they were 100% ripping us off for complete crap. So yeah, I think the military budget needs to stay the same, if not raise it. But first, I think you're right. They should do an audit. They should go in and see it that if there's any high risk areas or anywhere that the U.S. government or the U.S. military is being exploited. But yeah, so I guess on that note, we'll go ahead and pretty much wrap things up here for another successful Martin Memo Monday. It is 9:11, so that's about perfect time to go ahead and wrap this thing up. Marcy, I want to say thank you so much for
9/11.
yeah, 9/11, right? I want to say thank you so much for joining me today, and it was a great conversation. It was great talking to you now in the flesh-ish, if you will. But continue doing great things. Thank you so much again for joining, and I look forward to our future conversations.
Well, thank you for having me, and maybe when I get a better camera, I'll come back on.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. Yes. Better
When I get
cameras
better
for
Wi-Fi
all.
connection.
Yeah. Hey, it worked out pretty all right. You just broke up a couple times, but nothing major. So
I
thank you so
hope.
much for your time. And thank you all for joining and what has been another successful Martin Memo Monday. I'm so humbled and blessed. If you have not subscribed already, I encourage you all to subscribe. God bless you. God bless everything. Be sure to tune in on Wednesday as I go over another installation of the epidemic that we have as far as all the cancer products within vaccines, within food, within everything. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And then on Friday as well, I'm going to go over the part 4 of that 5-part series. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for loving this and subscribing. God bless you all. And thank you again for another great Monday. This has been the Martin Memo. God bless.
God bless.